Okay, so this happened a while back, maybe 2 years ago now, but it still feels fresh, like I just woke up from it, you know? And the weirdest part is, I've tried to tell it a few times to different people, but it always comes out sounding off, like I'm trying to convince them of something I'm not even sure I believe myself. But you guys, you get it? You're here for the stuff that scratches at the edges of what's real, the kind of dread that doesn't need a monster under the bed to make your skin crawl. This isn't a ghost story, not really. It's something else. Something about a place, a person, and a song that IT started at Carowinds. You know Carowinds? The amusement park straddling the North Carolina and South Carolina border, just south of Charlotte. It's a big place, got some serious roller coasters, but also the usual family stuff. We were there for a company outing, a team building kind of thing. My company, a small tech startup, decided a day of screaming on rides and overpriced hot dogs would somehow foster camaraderie. I'm not usually one for theme parks. Too many crowds, too much noise, too much forced fun. But I went because, well, work. And because Maya was going. Maya, she's in marketing. We'd been friendly, office banter, coffee breaks, that kind of thing. But there was always this hum, this current, under everything we said. She had this way of laughing, a little breathy, that made me feel like I was the only one in the room. Her hair, a deep, rich brown, always seemed to catch the light just so, framing a face that was all sharp angles and soft curves. High cheekbones, a nose that was a little too perfect, and lips that were usually glossed, catching the light like wet fruit. When she smiled, really smiled, her eyes crinkled at the corners, and I swear my stomach would do a little flip. We got there early, before the worst of the crowds. It was a bright, almost aggressively cheerful Saturday in late May. The air was already thick with that humid, sweet smell of popcorn and sun-warmed plastic. Our team, about 15 of us, gathered near the entrance. Maya was wearing a pair of dark, fitted jeans that hugged her hips like a second skin, and a light blue tank top. The fabric was thin, soft, and I found my eyes drifting, catching the subtle rise and fall of her chest as she talked, her breasts pressing gently against the material. It was stupid, I know, but even then, surrounded by colleagues, my mind went there. The way the light played on the slight sheen of sweat on her collarbone, the delicate curve of her neck as she turned to chat with Dylan from accounting. "Ready to get your stomach tossed, Mark?" she asked, turning to me, her smile a little wider than usual. My name is Mark, by the way. Only if you promise to hold my hand, I joked, immediately regretting it too forward, but she just laughed, a quick, bright sound. "Maybe on the next one," she said, and I felt a blush creep up my neck. Damn it, she saw it too. Her eyes, a warm hazel, twinkled. She always knew. We started with some of the bigger coasters. The Fury 325, the Intimidator. I hate heights, but there's something about the sheer speed, the G-forces, that just shuts your brain off. It's a good kind of numb. Maya, on the other hand, was a natural. She screamed, but it was a joyful scream, not one of terror. Her hair flew behind her, and her face, when we hit the drops, was a picture of pure exhilaration. I remember watching her on the first climb, the slow, agonizing click-clack of the chain pulling us higher and higher. Her hands were gripping the safety bar, knuckles white, but her lips were curved in an excited grin. The sun caught the faint shimmer of her lip gloss, and for a second, all I could think about was how soft those lips must feel, how they might taste after a ride like this. It was a completely inappropriate thought, especially with the guy from HR sitting right behind us, but it was there, sharp and insistent. After a few rides, the adrenaline wore off, and we decided to grab some lunch. We split off from the main group, just me, Maya, and a couple of other people, Vanessa, another marketing specialist, and Jordan, one of our lead developers. We found a relatively quiet spot near a shaded food court. While we were waiting in line for some mediocre burgers, that's when I first saw him. He wasn't doing anything remarkable. Just standing there a little apart from the queue watching the crowds. He was an older guy, maybe late 50s, early 60s, thin, almost gaunt, with a shock of pure white hair that looked too bright against his weathered skin. He wore a simple dark blue polo shirt and khaki shorts, practical for a theme park, but there was something off about his posture. Too rigid, too still. His eyes, even from a distance, seemed to bore into the general hubbub, not really seeing anything but observing everything. It was a fleeting glance, nothing more, just a random old guy. "What are you getting?" Maya asked, nudging my arm. Her fingers brushed mine, and a jolt went through me. Her skin felt warm, smooth. I pulled my hand away too quickly, almost dropping my wallet. Idiot. Cheeseburger I guess, and fries. You? Same. My metabolism is going to hate me for this later, but whatever, it's a park day. She grinned, and I tried to focus on her words, not the way her top stretched just a little across her chest as she leaned back against the railing, her breasts gently outlined beneath the thin fabric. We ate, talked about work, about the rides. Jordan was complaining about the lines, Vanessa was already planning which souvenir shop to hit. I kept finding my gaze drifting back to the spot where the old man had been. He wasn't there anymore. Good. Just my imagination making a mountain out of a molehill. Later that afternoon, after a few more rides, the heat was really starting to get to me. We decided to take a break from the major attractions and wandered into the county fair section of the park. You know, the classic carnival games, the smaller, gentler rides. There was a carousel there, one of those big ornate ones with painted horses and gilded chariots, spinning slowly to tinny calliope music. It looked old-fashioned, almost out of place amidst the modern steel monstrosities. Maya surprisingly loved carousels. Oh, come on, Mark. Just one ride for old time's sake, she pleaded, her eyes wide and sparkling. She looked genuinely excited, like a kid. It was endearing, and honestly hard to resist. The way she moved, a slight sway to her hips as she bounced on the balls of her feet, made it even harder. Her jeans, already tight, seemed to emphasize every curve, every subtle shift in her weight. I found myself imagining the feel of her hand in mine as we walked, the warmth of her palm, the delicate bones of her fingers. All right, I conceded, feeling a smile spread across my face. But only if you pick the prettiest horse. We bought our tickets and waited for the current ride to end. The carousel was playing a standard, upbeat, slightly off-key rendition of Entry of the Gladiators. As the riders disembarked, I saw him again. The old man. He was standing by the railing just watching the carousel, his hands clasped behind his back. He wasn't looking at us, or at any specific person, just the rotating horses. It was the same dark blue polo, the same khakis. His white hair was still startlingly bright. A shiver went down my spine, but I tried to ignore it. Just a coincidence. We got on. Maya, of course, picked a magnificent white stallion with a flowing mane and a jeweled saddle. I took the horse next to her, a darker, more stoic-looking beast. She giggled as she settled onto the saddle, her bare ankles showing above her sneakers as she adjusted her feet in the stirrups. Her calves tensed slightly, defined and strong. I found myself staring for a beat too long, appreciating the delicate curve of her ankle bone, the way the skin stretched taut over her instep. I quickly looked away, feeling a familiar flush. The carousel operator, a bored-looking teenager, pulled the lever. The music swelled, a little louder this time, and the horses began their slow, rhythmic ascent and descent. The world started to blur around us, a kaleidoscope of bright colors and laughing faces. And then the music changed. It wasn't abrupt, not like someone just flipped a switch. It was more like a fade, a slow, almost imperceptible shift. Entry of the Gladiators softened, distorted for a moment, and then a different melody began to emerge. It was a calliope, no doubt, but the tune, it wasn't anything I'd ever heard at a theme park. It wasn't a standard carnival song. It was haunting, melancholic, with a strange, looping quality. And the moment I heard it, a wave of profound unease washed over me. Because I knew that song. Not from anywhere real. Not from a radio or a movie or another amusement park. I knew it from my dreams. It was a melody that had surfaced, fragmented, in my sleep, sometimes for years. Always the same, a bittersweet, slightly off-key tune, accompanied by a sense of deep, inexplicable longing or dread. I'd never been able to place it, never heard it anywhere else. Until now. My breath caught in my throat. I looked at Maya. She was smiling, her eyes closed, her head tilted back, enjoying the gentle motion. She didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did, but just thought it was another carousel tune. Maya, I said, my voice coming out a little hoarse. Do you recognize this song? She opened her eyes, blinking. No, not really. It's pretty though, isn't it? A bit sad. She looked at me, a flicker of concern crossing her face. You okay? You look a little pale. I forced a smile. Yeah, just the heat maybe. Or too many rides. I tried to dismiss it, to tell myself it was just a strange coincidence, a trick of memory, a new song they'd added. But the unease was a cold knot in my stomach that it was my song. The one from my dreams, playing on a carousel at Carowinds. I scanned the perimeter of the carousel, my eyes darting past the blurred faces of parents and children, and there he was again, the old man that he was still standing by the railing, but now he was looking directly at me. His eyes, even from this distance, seemed impossibly dark, impossibly focused. There was no expression on his face, just that unwavering gaze that it wasn't aggressive, not threatening in any obvious way. But it was invasive, like he was seeing something in me or through me that shouldn't be seen. The carousel completed its rotation, the music faded, and the familiar, cheerful calliope of Entry of the Gladiators returned, as if the other song had never been there. The operator pulled the lever, and the horses slowed to a stop. "Well, that was nice," Maya said, hopping off her horse, her movements fluid and graceful. Her hair, which had been pulled back in a ponytail, had come loose around her face, giving her a slightly disheveled, even more appealing look. She stretched, her arms reaching above her head, and the tank top pulled taut across her midriff, revealing the subtle curve of her navel. My gaze lingered, a flash of heat, before I forced myself to look away. "Yeah," I mumbled, my eyes still searching for the old man. That he was gone again? "What's wrong, Mark? You're really quiet," Maya asked, touching my arm lightly. Her touch was warm, comforting, but it didn't chase away the chill. "Nothing, just thinking." I didn't want to tell her about the song, or the old man. It sounded crazy even to me. We rejoined Vanessa and Jordan, who were trying their luck at a ring toss game. I couldn't focus. The image of the old man's eyes, the sound of that dream song, kept looping in my head. It felt like a warning or a signal. But for what? The rest of the afternoon was a blur. I kept scanning the crowds, half expecting, half dreading to see him again. Every time a shadow moved, every time someone with white hair passed by, my heart jumped. Maya noticed my distraction. She kept giving me concerned glances, asking if I was feeling okay. I kept brushing it off, saying I was tired, that the sun was getting to me. As the park started to empty out, and the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, we decided to head back to the parking lot. Our team was meeting up for a final head count before we all headed home. We were walking past the carousel again, which was now mostly empty, the lights beginning to twinkle on its ornate structure. The calliope was still playing, a different tune this time, something upbeat and familiar. "Last chance for a ride, Mark," Maya joked, nudging me. Her hip brushed mine, a fleeting contact that sent a jolt through me despite my frayed nerves. I glanced down at her legs, the way her jeans stretched over her thighs, the subtle sway of her hips as she walked. Even now, with this weird dread hanging over me, my body reacted. It was frustrating, almost shameful, this constant undercurrent of desire. Then I saw him. He was standing directly in front of the carousel, right next to the entrance gate. He wasn't looking at the carousel this time. He was looking at us. Me. His gaze was like a physical weight. I stopped dead in my tracks. "Hey guys," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Do you see that guy?" Vanessa and Jordan looked over. "What guy?" Jordan asked, squinting. "The old man, white hair, dark polo." I pointed. They both followed my finger. "Oh yeah, just some old dude," Vanessa said dismissively. "Why? He's been?" "I've seen him a few times today," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Always watching." Jordan shrugged. "It's a theme park, Mark. Lots of people watching other people. You're being paranoid." But Maya was looking at him too, her brow was furrowed. "He does look a little intense," she admitted, her voice softer. "Like he's waiting for something." As she spoke, the old man slowly, deliberately raised his hand and pointed. Not at us, not at the carousel. He pointed at me. A slow, steady, accusatory finger. My blood ran cold. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt a primal urge to run, to scream. "Okay, that's creepy," Vanessa said, a nervous laugh escaping her. "Let's just go." But I couldn't move. His finger remained pointed, unwavering, and then he lowered his hand, turned, and walked slowly into the shadows of the park, disappearing as quickly as he'd appeared. "What the hell was that?" Jordan asked, clearly unsettled now. "I don't know," I managed, my voice still shaky. I really don't know. Maya squeezed my arm, her touch was firm, reassuring. Come on, Mark, let's get out of here, you're clearly freaked out. We walked quickly back to the meeting point, the encounter leaving a sour taste in my mouth. That I didn't mention the dream song to them, that it would just make me sound even crazier. That we found the rest of our team, piled into our cars, and started the drive back. I couldn't shake it. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, those dark, knowing eyes, that pointing finger, and the song, the melancholic calliope tune from my dreams, played on an endless loop in my head. The next few days were weird. That I kept expecting to see him. Every time I went to the grocery store, every time I walked down the street, I'd scan the faces, half expecting to see that shock of white hair. It started to feel like an obsession. That I found myself checking my rearview mirror constantly, convinced I was being followed. That I knew it was irrational, but the feeling was potent, pervasive. Then the smaller things started happening. My phone, which I never put on silent, would sometimes be on silent when I picked it up. My keys would be in a different spot than I remembered leaving them. Little things, easily dismissed as forgetfulness or absent-mindedness, but they added to the growing sense of unease. One evening, about a week after Carowinds, I was unwinding, scrolling through my phone. That I decided to look up Carowinds on Google Maps, just to see if the carousel was clearly visible, or if there were any weird historical notes about it. As I was zooming in, I saw a photo. It was a user-submitted photo, taken from the path leading to the carousel. It was a wide shot, showing the colorful horses, the ornate structure. And in the foreground, blurred but undeniably there, was the old man, standing by the railing just as I'd seen him. But what truly made my blood run cold was that his head was turned, that he was looking directly at the camera, at the person taking the photo, and his finger was raised, pointing, not at the camera but past it, pointing, I realized with a sickening lurch, at the exact spot where I would have been standing when I first noticed him. I stared at the photo, my heart pounding. That it wasn't a coincidence. That it couldn't be. This was targeted, but why? I tried to show it to Maya the next day at work. That I pulled up the photo on my phone, my hands shaking slightly. Look at this, Maya, I said, my voice low. It's him, and look where he's pointing. She took my phone, her fingers brushing mine, sending a familiar spark through me even as my fear gnawed at me. She studied the photo, her perfect lips pressed into a thin line, her brow furrowed again. That's really unsettling, Mark, she said, her voice quiet. It's like he knew someone was taking the picture and he was trying to make a statement. She zoomed in, her thumb brushing the screen. I watched her, her face so close to mine, the scent of her perfume, light and floral, filling my senses. My mind, despite the creeping dread, still registered the delicate curve of her ear, the soft skin of her cheek. It was a strange, disorienting mix of terror and attraction. He was pointing at me, Maya. I swear that I felt it. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of concern and a touch of something else, a hint of fear. I believe you, she said, her voice barely a whisper. But what does it mean? We didn't have answers. And that was the worst part. The not knowing. A few more days passed. The small incidents escalated. My computer at home, which I always shut down, would sometimes be on, logged in when I came home. My browser history would show searches I hadn't made, things like Carowinds carousel history, unexplained phenomena, amusement parks, reoccurring dream melodies. It was terrifying. Someone was in my house. Or something. I started locking my doors, double-checking windows. I even bought a cheap motion-activated camera for my living room. I felt ridiculous, like I was living in a bad horror movie, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being targeted. One night, I got a call. It was a blocked number. I almost didn't answer it, but something compelled me. I picked up. Silence. Just a faint, almost imperceptible static. Hello? I said, my voice a little shaky. More silence. And then very faintly, so faint I almost missed it, I heard it, the calliope playing my song. The dream song. It was distant, muffled, like it was coming from a tin can, but it was unmistakable. The melancholic, looping melody. My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a gasp. I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, the faint music still emanating from it. I stared at it, my heart hammering. This wasn't just an old man. This wasn't just paranoia. This was something else. something impossible. I didn't sleep at all that night that I sat in my living room, the lights on, a baseball bat next to me staring at the front door. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside made me jump. The next morning I went to work, a zombie. Maya saw me and her expression immediately softened. She walked over to my desk, her movements slow, concerned. She was wearing a loose-fitting white blouse today, tucked into a pair of tailored black pants. Even in my state of utter exhaustion and terror, I noticed the way the soft fabric of her blouse billowed slightly as she moved, hinting at the curves beneath. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, but a few wisps had escaped, framing her face. She looked serious, worried. "Mark, you look terrible," she said, her voice gentle. She placed a hand on my arm, her touch warm and grounding. "What happened?" I looked around the office. Everyone else was busy, typing, talking. "I got a call last night," I whispered, leaning closer to her. "A blocked number, and I heard it, Maya, the song, the one from the carousel, the one from my dreams." That it was on the phone. Her eyes widened, her hand tightening on my arm. "Oh my God, Mark, that's impossible." "I know," I said, my voice breaking. "I know it is, but I heard it, clear as day. Someone is messing with me. Or something is." She pulled her hand away slowly and crossed her arms, hugging herself. Her lips, usually so full and glossy, were now pale, pressed together. "This isn't right, Mark. This isn't normal. Have you told anyone else?" "The police." I shook my head. What would I tell them? An old man at Carowinds pointed at me, and now a dream song is playing on my phone? They'd lock me up. "Maybe you should stay with someone," she suggested, her gaze thoughtful. "Just for a few nights. Get out of your apartment." The thought of staying with Maya flashed through my mind. Her apartment, her bed, the proximity. A jolt of desire, inappropriate and jarring, shot through me. I imagined her in her pajamas, the soft fabric clinging to her, the scent of her skin. It was a bizarre, almost sickening juxtaposition with the terror I was feeling. My mind was a mess. I don't know," I stammered, shaking my head to clear it. "I don't want to drag anyone else into this." She nodded, understanding. "Okay. But please be careful, Mark, seriously, this is getting out of hand." The next few days were a living hell. I felt like I was constantly on edge, my nerves frayed. I couldn't focus at work. I kept seeing shadows, hearing things. The camera I'd set up at home never showed anything. Just an empty living room. But the feeling of being watched never went away. Then the photos started appearing. Not on my phone, not on my computer. Physical photos. The first one was tucked under my windshield wiper when I left work. It was a grainy black and white photo of me as a child. Maybe 6 or 7 years old. I was sitting on a wooden hobby horse, in what looked like a small local fair. My hair was a mess, my front teeth missing, and I had this wide, innocent grin. It was a photo I hadn't seen in years, one my grandmother had kept in an old album. How did anyone get it? And why? My hands shook so violently I almost dropped it. I crumpled it up, threw it in the passenger seat, and sped home, my heart pounding. When I got to my apartment, I saw it, tucked under my doormat. Another photo. This one was of me in high school, standing with my friends at a football game, my arm around a girl I barely remembered now. It was a candid shot, a moment of youthful exuberance. Again, a photo I hadn't seen in years, one that had been lost to time. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and leaned against it, breathing heavily. This wasn't just a stalker. This was something else. Something that knew me, knew my past, knew my memories. I spent the next few hours tearing my apartment apart, searching for hidden cameras, listening devices. Nothing, just my own growing paranoia echoing in the empty rooms. I called Maya. I needed to talk to someone, anyone. "They're leaving photos, Maya," I choked out, my voice raw with fear. "Photos from my childhood, from high school. Photos I don't even have anymore." She was silent for a moment. "Mark, you need to go to the police, now. This is harassment. This is dangerous." "What can they do?" I yelled, the fear turning into anger. "They'll think I'm crazy. How do you explain someone getting photos you don't even possess?" "I don't know, Mark, but you can't just sit there. This person, whoever they are, they're escalating. They're getting bolder." Her voice was tight with worry that I could hear the genuine fear in her tone, and it made me feel a strange mix of guilt and a perverse comfort. She believed me. "I'm coming over," she said, her voice firm. "Just stay put. Lock everything, that don't open the door for anyone but me." The thought of her coming over, of her presence, brought another wave of that conflicting desire, her scent, her warmth, her soft skin. Even in the midst of this terror, my body was betraying me that I hated it, that I hated feeling this vulnerable, this exposed, both to the stranger and to my own inappropriate thoughts. She arrived about 20 minutes later. That I peered through the peephole, relief washing over me when I saw her face, framed by the doorframe. She looked worried, her lips a little pale, but her eyes were steady. She was wearing a simple black t-shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back. Even in this casual attire, she looked striking. The way the t-shirt draped over her, hinting at the curve of her breasts, the long, elegant line of her neck, that I felt a pang, a longing for something normal, something safe. With her that I opened the door, and she practically pushed her way in, locking it behind her. "Are you okay? Did anything else happen?" she asked, her voice hushed. She looked around my apartment, her gaze scanning every corner, as if expecting the old man to pop out from behind the couch. "No, nothing, just waiting." I felt a little safer with her there, but the dread was still a heavy cloak. "Let me see the photos," she said, her voice quiet. That I retrieved the crumpled childhood photo from my car, and the high school one from the doormat. She carefully smoothed them out, her fingers delicate. She studied them, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her face, in the dim light of my living room, looked almost ethereal, her flawless cheekbones casting subtle shadows. That I found myself staring at her, at the way her dark lashes fanned out against her skin, the slight tremble of her lower lip as she processed the impossible. "These are old," she murmured, "and personal. This isn't just some random creep, Mark. This is someone who has access to your past somehow." "That's what I'm saying. How? How is this even possible?" I paced my living room, running a hand through my hair. She looked up at me, her eyes meeting mine. "Mark, do you have any enemies? Anyone who would want to terrorize you like this?" I shook my head. "No, I mean, I'm not exactly a social butterfly, but I don't think I've pissed anyone off enough to warrant this." We sat in silence for a while, the weight of the unknown pressing down on us. The sun had set, and the room was growing dark. That I didn't want to turn on the lights, as if staying in shadow would somehow protect us. "What about the song?" she asked, breaking the silence. "The dream song. Have you ever told anyone about it?" "No," I said, my voice barely audible. "Never. That it was just mine, something from my head." "Then how could he know?" she whispered, her voice laced with genuine fear. "How could he play it for you?" We had no answers, just questions and a growing, suffocating dread. "I need to get out of here, Maya," I said finally. "I can't stay here tonight. That I just can't." "Okay," she said, her voice soft. "Then come to my place." The words hung in the air, a strange mix of terror and unexpected hope. My heart did a weird little flip. That I looked at her, really looked at her. Her hair was a little messy now, her face pale, but her eyes were still strong, determined. She was scared, but she was here for me. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice hesitant. "Yes, Mark, that I'm sure. You can't be alone right now." She stood up, her movements fluid, her hips swayed slightly as she moved, a natural, unconscious rhythm that even now, in this terrifying moment, I couldn't help but notice. The tight fit of her jeans, the subtle curve of her rear, it was all there, a constant, unsettling presence in my peripheral awareness. We gathered a few things, mostly just a change of clothes for me. That I felt like a refugee, fleeing my own home. That as we walked out to her car, I kept looking over my shoulder, convinced I would see him, standing in the shadows, watching us leave. But there was nothing. Just the quiet street, the hum of crickets, and the distant sound of traffic. Her apartment was small, cozy, and smelled faintly of lavender and something sweet, like vanilla. That it was a comforting smell, a stark contrast to the oppressive fear I was carrying. She offered me a glass of water, and we sat on her couch, talking in hushed tones. "I don't know what to do, Maya," I confessed, running a hand over my face. "I feel like I'm losing my mind." She reached out and took my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. Her touch was soft, reassuring. "You're not losing your mind, Mark. Something is happening, something really messed up, but we'll figure it out. Her proximity, the warmth of her hand, the way her leg was pressed against mine on the couch, it was all a confusing jumble of comfort and desire. I looked at her, at the curve of her glossy lips, the way her hair fell around her face, and for a moment, I just wanted to lean in, to kiss her, to escape into something warm and human and real. That it was a selfish, desperate impulse. She caught my gaze, and for a second, her eyes flickered, a hint of understanding, or maybe something else, passing between us. My face flushed. I pulled my hand away, feeling guilty, ashamed of my inappropriate thoughts in such a terrifying situation. Sorry, I mumbled. Looking away, she didn't say anything, just squeezed my arm lightly. It's okay, Mark, she said, her voice soft. It's a lot that we're both on edge. We ended up staying up late, talking, trying to make sense of it all. We theorized, we brainstormed, we went over every detail again and again. Nothing made sense. The photos, the song, the old man, his impossible knowledge of my dreams. It was all too much. Eventually, exhaustion won. She made up the couch for me, offering me a blanket and a pillow. I'm just in the bedroom, she said, pointing to a door down the short hallway. If you need anything, just call. I lay on the couch, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, listening to the quiet sounds of her apartment, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sirens. I could hear her moving around in her bedroom, the soft rustle of clothes, the faint sound of water running. My mind, despite the terror, drifted to the image of her getting ready for bed, shedding her clothes, her body, which I had so often fantasized about, now just a few feet away. It was a perverse, almost cruel twist of fate, to be so close to her, under such terrifying circumstances. I must have drifted off, because the next thing I knew, I was waking up with a jolt. The apartment was completely silent. The digital clock on the cable box read 3:17 a.m. My heart was pounding. I didn't know why I'd woken up. Just a feeling, a cold, heavy presence. I lay there, absolutely still, straining my ears. Nothing. And then I heard it, faint, distant, but unmistakably there, the calliope, playing my song. The dream song. It wasn't coming from my phone this time. It wasn't a call. It was coming from outside, from somewhere nearby. I slowly, cautiously, got up from the couch. My muscles were stiff, my breath held tight in my chest. I crept to the window, pulling back the curtain just a fraction of an inch. The street was dark, deserted, the streetlights cast long, eerie shadows. There was nothing there. No carousel, no old man, just the quiet, sleeping neighborhood. But the music was still playing, faintly, mournfully, from somewhere just beyond the edge of my perception. It was like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, listening to the impossible melody. It was like a siren song, pulling me, drawing me in. My mind raced, trying to find a rational explanation. A neighbor playing a weird record? A car with a strange ringtone? But it was too clear, too distinct, too perfectly that song. And then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, pressing in on me, making my ears ring. I let the curtain fall, my hand trembling. I backed away from the window, stumbling slightly. This was it. This was him. He wasn't just observing anymore. He was here. He was outside. He knew where I was. I needed to check on Maya. I crept down the short hallway to her bedroom door. It was slightly ajar. A sliver of light from the street lamp outside illuminated a portion of her room. I could see her bed, the covers rumpled. She was asleep, her form a gentle mound under the duvet. I hesitated. Should I wake her? Tell her? She was already so scared, and what could we do? As I stood there watching her sleep, a strange, almost hypnotic feeling washed over me. The fear was still there, a cold, hard knot in my gut, but it was overlaid with something else. A profound sense of vulnerability, not just mine but hers. She was here, in her own home, sleeping, unknowingly exposed to whatever horror was outside. My gaze drifted from her sleeping form to her bedside table. There was a framed photo there. It was a picture of her and her parents, smiling, on a beach. A normal, happy photo. And then I saw it, tucked neatly under the corner of the frame. Another photo. My blood ran cold. I knew instinctively what it was. I pushed open the door, my heart hammering, and walked to the bedside table. My hands were shaking so badly I almost couldn't pick it up. It was another old photo. Black and white. Of me? But this one wasn't from my childhood, that it wasn't from high school, that it was of me as a baby. Lying in a crib, wrapped in a blanket. My tiny wrinkled face, my eyes wide open, staring directly at the camera. And in the background, just barely visible, a blurry shape. A man, standing over the crib. His face was obscured by shadow, but his hair, it was a shock of pure white. I stared at the photo, unable to breathe. My own baby photo. A photo I had never, ever seen before in my life. A photo that should not exist. And the old man, standing over me. As a baby. A choked gasp escaped my lips. Maya stirred, her eyes fluttered open, blinking in the dim light. "Mark?" she murmured, her voice thick with sleep. "What's wrong?" I couldn't speak. I could only hold out the photo, my hand trembling violently. She sat up, pushing her hair away from her face, her eyes still heavy-lidded. She took the photo from me, her brow furrowing as she looked at it. Her eyes widened, slowly, as she processed what she was seeing. Her mouth opened slightly, her lips, usually so full of life, now slack with dawning horror. Her gaze flickered from the photo to me, and then back to the photo. Her eyes, usually so warm, were now filled with a terror that mirrored my own. "Mark?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Who is that?" I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "I don't know," I choked out. "I don't know, but he's been there, all along. He's been watching me. From the very beginning." The calliope music, the dream song, echoed in my mind. Not from outside anymore, but from inside. A melody that had been playing in my subconscious for my entire life, waiting for me to finally hear it, to finally recognize the impossible truth it carried. The truth that the old man at Carowinds wasn't just a stranger, that he was something far, far worse. Something that had been a part of my life, my history, my very being, since before I could even remember, and he wasn't done. Not yet. We sat there, in the silent, dark room, the impossible photo clutched in Maya's hand, the horrifying melody echoing in my head. The fear was no longer just about being watched, or stalked. It was about something infinitely deeper, something that warped the very fabric of my reality, and I knew with a chilling certainty that this was just the beginning. The carousel was still spinning, and the song, my song, was still playing.